Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. Hope you're doing well this morning. Lots and lots to get into. Medicals for January signings. That's not very exciting because it's a goalkeeper and it's Jack Butland. Also the latest on the right back situation, the striker situation and what Manchester United are looking to do there. Not only now but potentially in the summer as well. We've also got what the headline's all about. United Depay sale talks. We'll talk about what that's all about. Interesting conversation with somebody later last night about where we're at with the Manchester United sale at the moment. What else are we going to talk about as well? We'll have a little bit of an update on Joao Felix and a few other bits. Harry Kane as well. Let's talk about him. But let's get on with it. Make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe. The TUS Legends. That's you in the chat. United Stand Legends. That's you. Okay, let's get straight into it. So we're going to start talking off about these United Dubai sale talks. As you may have seen yesterday, there was quite a lot floating around about Dubai, other areas, what's going on with Manchester United. David Beckham has been mentioned. He's on our thumbnail. And I think it's just worth just assessing at where we're at the moment, sort of consuming and combining and assessing all the latest stories about Manchester United's sale in the last 24 hours and giving it because what I will say is absolutely everybody is expecting an announcement imminently, and I mean that's not wrong to expect that. If you think about it logically, Manchester United need to get this sale done by the end of the first quarter or the start of the second quarter, which is March, and to do that we are approaching, not quite, but we're not far off the middle of January, which means we're a couple of months away from a full sale, which means that things have got to move very, very, very quickly. It's well known that Manchester United are a huge football club, a huge sports club, and everybody wants the scoop on this, and it's just going to hit. It's going to hit. So where are we at with it? So we know that the Glazers have been out in the Middle East, and I'll go through some of the stuff from yesterday in a minute around the Beckham stuff, etc. But the latest I've had at the moment is that, yes, Manchester United, the Glazers, are trying to generate interest to get the best price they can get. And there's an interesting story about ex-players being involved in that because it's somewhat irrelevant. The main thing the Glazers want is 6 billion. They're not bothered whether there's an ex-player involved or it's Amazon. They just want the best price they can get because they're walking away. They'll never watch Man United again. They're not Man United fans. But this is not a moral sale. This is not like probably FSG. They've won a Premier League. They've won a Champions League. They probably care about Liverpool, and they probably will refer back and look at Liverpool with pride in years to come, even though they've made a lot of money out of it. With the Glazers, this is a sale to walk away from. So they just want the most money. Of course, that involves the Rain Group, and that involves conversations with many different people. So where are we at with the sale of Manchester United? Well, the conversation I had last night was very interesting because they acknowledged that Dubai, Middle East, Qatar, Bahrain, all these areas are very, very wealthy, and Manchester United and the Glazers would love them to buy Manchester United because of that wealth. But there's also a hell of a lot of interest in America, and that's where the Glazers reside. So effectively, what the feeling is from people in the know is that Manchester United are very much likely to still be bought by American owners or Middle Eastern owners. The Jim Radcliffes and everything like that would be a shock. They would be a shock if they bought Manchester United because people just do not feel that they have the wealth to overspend. And that's what the bottom line is. Whoever buys Manchester United is going to overspend. There are many different ways that you can value a business, but if you think about United's revenue, let's say Man United's potential revenue, before you take off wages and everything, is even $1 billion a year, which it's not. I think our revenue is around 600 million a year. You normally times that by 5 or 6 to get your true value of something. Well, even if we're making 700 million a year, that's 4.2 billion. So the Glazers want 5 or 6 billion. You're overpaying for something which doesn't fit in with someone like a Sir Jim Radcliffe. So I think it's going to be American investment or it's going to be Middle Eastern investment, and that's basically the conversation I was having last night. Morning, Mark. Do you think we need to buy in the window to guarantee top four? We'll talk about that in a bit, Carl. And completely agree. It will go to the highest bidder. Without independent regulators, we can't be sure of the new owner's intentions, says Charlie. Exactly spot on. So that brings me to my next point. Where are we at? What does anybody have any hints? I think at the moment, a lot of people think we're going to get bought from the Middle East. I think that's the general consensus across the industry. We're going to get bought by the Middle East. But I wouldn't ignore the fact that when this hit, that we were going to be sold, American investment was the favourite. So what's changed between then and now? Well, potentially a bidding war, because when you go public that you're selling the club, people start paying interest. Looking at, there was something yesterday that was quite interesting about Middle East. Obviously, and I need to get this correct, Abu Dhabi is Man City, Saudi Arabia is Newcastle, and Qatar is PSG. So very difficult for those three to buy Manchester United when they've already, bought football clubs, which leaves Dubai, which hasn't got a football club yet. Potentially, I heard another couple as well, Bahrain and Kuwait, who also have sovereign wealth funds and a lot of money. So there are three possibilities there. Over which, the funny thing is that those three may not be as wealthy as Saudi Arabia or Qatar or Abu Dhabi, but would still be ridiculously wealthy. There are also indications, and the reason we've got David Beckham on the thumbnail is sort of like it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, but you just don't know. There are theories out there that somebody like a David Beckham may be involved in a Middle Eastern bid to buy Manchester United. I mean, that could be very exciting for you. It could be very, very exciting. And it's very difficult to comment on something when everybody's so tight-lipped. But, again, I'd go back to what Charlie said and what I've said. It doesn't actually matter whether Sir Jim Ratcliffe has got the whole of Class of 92 behind him, and that's the logical bid to go with. This is not a regulated sale. This is not about what's best for Manchester United. This is about what's best for the Glazers' pocket. You could have the Class of 92, Roy Keane, Brian Robson, everybody behind a particular bid. But that doesn't mean they'll win, because we're not voting for it. And, this is about the highest bidder. And if the consortium with players raises 5 billion, but someone from the Middle East or America or somewhere else raises 6, Glazers will go with the 6. And you've got to get that in your head. It's one of the most important things. There is no bidding war that is based upon what's best or most exciting or attractive for Manchester United fans. This is about what's most attractive for the Glazers' pocket. Within reason, there is some regulation. I mean, it wasn't easy for Newcastle to get bought by the Saudis, but ultimately the Glazers will go with the biggest bidder. Hi Mark, long-time US supporter. We need to replace Ronaldo. Lost Gakpo to Liverpool. What's Felix worth for 4 million plus wages to Smitty? We'll talk about that in a minute. The Sultan of Brunei should buy us. I think he's rich enough, says Guantan. Look, I just want to say as well, would you want... And well, let's do a poll on this. I'm interested in this. Would you want... Start typing properly. Would you want an ex-player involved in buying the club? Yes or no? Just snap poll on that. Welcome to the Members Club, Jordan Bradshaw. So where we're at the moment, I think that's very, very, very likely that we will end up with either American owners or Middle Eastern owners. And that's where we are at the moment. Whether that's Dubai, whether that's some sort of Saudi thing, because there's been talk that could still happen. We'll have to wait and see. But also, I wouldn't discount American owners. I mean, look, I don't want to go back to November, but I said it in November. How quick the Glazers are looking to do this deal always led me to suspect that they had a deal in place and then they just put it out on the market to see if anyone would go higher. And what I mean by that is, I feel like United have a buyer before they went public, and that buyer might have offered them 5.5 billion, and then you go public with it and you see if anyone will offer any more, and if they don't, you go with the one that you've already got, which is going to be quite quick. So I wouldn't be surprised by that at all, but we'll see. The highest bid wins, as we all know. As long it gets rid of the Glazers, I'll be happy, says Carl. And interestingly, look, would you want an ex-player involved with Manchester United? I'm quite surprised that it's so high. No. 70% said no, that they wouldn't. Now, I will say this. If it's a David Beckham, I don't care. If David Beckham is part of a consortium to buy Manchester United, I don't care. I think David Beckham is somebody that, has loved Manchester United his whole life. Played for Manchester United, always loved Manchester United. As a kid, loved Manchester United. He's a fan of Manchester United. That, I wouldn't mind something like that. And I suppose there's one or two others you could throw into that equation who would also be part of the class of 92. I suppose you could put Gary Neville into that as well, but I think Gary's just... Because we hear from Gary 3 times a week on the telly and we get to see his strengths and his weaknesses, I worry about his weaknesses. He's very loyal, and in football that's not necessarily a good thing when it comes to recruiting coaches. Look at what he said about Solskjaer. Ex-players have Gary Neville to thank for this poll, says Julian. But then there's other examples of ex-players I wouldn't want anywhere near the club. I wouldn't want Patrice Evra. I wouldn't want Ruud van Nistelrooy. I wouldn't want Teddy Sheringham. I wouldn't want Rio Ferdinand. I wouldn't want that type of an ex-player because they're not United for me. They're United legends, but they're not. David Beckham, we know his backstory. Gary Neville, we know their backstory. They're United through and through from kids. You look at some of those players I've mentioned. They ended up being United legends, but they also went quite happily to other clubs before or after, or supported different clubs before or after. It doesn't. I think there's a category of an ex-player, and if we're going to get an ex-player involved, they need to be United through and through. And I'm talking pictured in a kit when they were a kid, and all the way up to they've always been United. I think we have got some United legends who would like to get involved, but if you look at it, they tried to move to other clubs. They were at other clubs before that. They supported different clubs as a kid. Do you want that? I don't want that. So there's a very finite. There's a very finite ex-player I would want involved in Manchester United, and to be honest with you, I'd rather not generally, but there's one or two that I think wouldn't bother me too much. There's a raft of them that I think would just be a bit sensationalist, Michael Owen would be terrible, yes. Anyway, look, we'll wait and see. If an ex-player was to join a bid, I wouldn't want them as a face in the background. I'd want them involved in some capacity. Van der Sar, for example, says Charlie. And that's a different thing. If you're good enough, then, if you're qualified in the game, then that's absolutely fine. It's like bringing somebody in like Robin Van Persie as a coach under Erik ten Hag. I ain't got a problem with that, But, yeah, I don't want just... an ex-player doesn't really cut it for me, yeah. I wouldn't mind Beckham because I love Beckham, but that's about it, I think, really. That's about it. Anyway, let's get back on with the news. So, yeah, in relation to the sale of Manchester United, look, Middle East or America looks like the place it's going to be. And we are expecting something very, very, very soon. There is wealth out there. And the big thing I wanted to say is that it will go to the highest bidder. It will go to the highest bidder because that's what the Glazers want. But if you're spending £6 billion or £5 billion on Manchester United, you're spending £2 billion too much. If you're spending £2 billion too much to get Manchester United, you can bloody afford it. And if you can afford to get hold of it for overvalue, imagine what they can afford to do if they get the club. So that's the next step. And let's see what happens. Ayuma says, Harry Kane does not score on clutch moments, so he won't win big games for United. We'll talk about Harry Kane in a minute, but I want to sort of assess where we're at in relation to other news at the moment. So, a few things to go through. We'll start off with the update from Laurie Whitwell and The Athletic, who has basically said that Manchester United are 100% looking at buying a striker. However, bargain basement deals, loan deals or cheap deals are what are most likely, with Memphis Depay and Choupo-Moting both mentioned. This is concerning. We will bring a forward in. There are some people who think we won't. We will bring a forward in. I want it to be Joao Felix. I wanted it to be Gakpo. I want it to be a player that Ten Hag clearly wants as an A or B choice that he can build a future with. What I don't want is what we're hearing is I would rather get a loan deal who pisses off in the summer, who's cheap, than just get somebody who's cheap. And what I mean by that is if you get Memphis or Choupo-Moting, then we're stuck with them for 3 years. Like, they're not loan deals. They're coming towards the end of their contracts. They will want contracts. So you are going to get something that's not good enough, that nobody else wants in January, which is a risk in itself, but then you're going to commit yourself to it for 2 or 3 years. The reason I think Joao Felix is so good is because if he goes back in the summer, he goes back in the summer, but in the short term, he could be a long-term option. Whereas I think if you bring a Memphis or a Choupo-Moting in, you burden yourself with a player that you don't really want, that nobody else really wants for 2 or 3 years. This is what I mean. I keep hearing people say Manchester United are looking for a cheap short-term option in the January transfer window. We're not looking for a cheap short-term option. We're looking for a cheap long-term option. These players we're being linked to, they're not looking to come to United for 5 months and then get binned. They'll want more security than that. So they will want longer contracts than 5 months. And then you get burdened with a player that ultimately... get Choupo-Moting on a 3-year deal. Why? Same with Memphis. Why? This is not going to make us build on the great start that we've already had. And I would liken it to, well, you know what? If you're in a race, you're in a car race, yeah? And there's 30 laps to go, and you're in third place like we are at the moment. And you can see teams like Liverpool and Chelsea and clubs that are quite far behind you, but they're changing their tyres, yeah? They're putting new tyres on to get them to the finish line. Might not win them the race, but they're giving themselves a chance. Man United, what do? We go and put tyres, instead of putting on some fresh tyres, because we can't afford it, we go and put some worn tyres on that might get us to the end of the race, but also might cause us to fall back. And I think that's the sort of deal you're doing with Memphis or Choupo-Moting or Thuram or something like that. You're putting on tyres that aren't as good as everybody else's and then expecting to still get to the end of the race in the position you're in. I don't think you can win the race anymore, but why not put a fresh set of tyres on? You might actually catch Arsenal. So I think that I don't like these stories. Like we know there are good options out there that will give us a good chance of competing, and we're going to gamble on a set of tyres that have already been worn, and I don't think that's a good idea. So we will bring somebody in, but it's such a contradiction. We've spent the first few minutes of the show talking about all this wealth that wants to buy Man United, and then we're trying to buy the cheapest deal we can do to strengthen a team that's doing really well. It's such a stark contradiction. Loads of money coming into the club from a buyer, but in reality, let's spend as little as we can and bring in long-term shit options. It doesn't make any sense. Danesh says, if United was not listed on the New York Stock Exchange, the Glazers would have not said they are selling. They would sell off silently to someone. At least we know this. Good point, Danesh. Thank you very well. Thank you very much for that. I need to close this poll. 67% of you wouldn't want any ex-players involved in the purchase of Manchester United. Interesting. So, look, that's the latest this morning with regards to striker options. Cheap and Memphis and Choupo-Moting being mentioned as well. So, cheap. Feel like a bird. What else? I do want to bring Harry Kane in here because he is mentioned Kane United summer striker plan. Now, I've mentioned this quite a lot for months. Theory, not based on any information, just based on a hunch. I think United are going to go for Harry Kane in the summer. Now, Harry Kane is like Spurs. 1 minute they're brilliant, 1 minute they're shit. Inconsistent is the word. Harry Kane, very good last night. And you see Twitter full of, if we could swap Anthony Martial for Harry Kane, we'd win the title. What title's that then? The title that Harry Kane's never won? I mean, I just think people are so reactionary. If we bring Harry Kane in, we'll win the lot. He's the missing piece. Have you checked his trophy cabinet? There's nothing in there. He had a cup of tea last week and put it in there to make it feel a bit more, less bare. But that's about it. Harry Kane is not a winner. He's a world-class striker. He ain't a winner. So all these people who say if we could bring Harry Kane in, he'd be the winning piece. He's 30 in the summer and he's never won anything. How can you describe Harry Kane as the missing piece to win titles when he's never won anything? So I disagree with that. But what I do agree with is I've just got this hunch that Manchester United think that Harry Kane is the missing piece. And he's better than Martial. I mean, I'm not saying that. He's better than Martial. And you could see Manchester United being improved. But I don't think it's the right choice. I really don't. He's not a winner. He'll be 30 in the summer. He'll cost you a lot of money. You'll be stuck with him for about 4 years. and there's a very big chance that he will decline over those 4 years quite rapidly. So for me, Harry Kane at 30 or Osimhen in his early 20s, Osimhen every day of the week, because Osimhen's still got development. I don't think Ten Hag can develop Harry Kane at 30, by the way. And we've got a manager that's brilliant at development. So for me, we should be going for a younger star striker in the summer. But I do think that Man United will have a sniff at Harry Kane. And the reason I think that is because he'll have 1 year left on his contract in the summer. He'll want to get out of Spurs because they never win anything. And he'll want to break the Premier League goal scoring record. So Man City won't go for him. Liverpool won't go for him. He can't go to Arsenal or Chelsea. Ta-da! It's Man United. And look, I don't say this lightly. I've been saying it for ages. I think, and I know Robert McCormack will be very happy, but I think that Man United will go for Harry Kane in the summer. And some people will be very happy about that. For me, I think he's brilliant. I'm a big fan of Harry Kane. But I'm not excited about it as some people is, because I think there's a lot of warning signs there. If United say yes to a buyer before the end of January and it's announced, even though it won't be completed, could they provide funds in January, says Glennie? I don't know. Shashink, welcome to the members club there. Let's do a quick poll on this. Yes, let's do a poll. Would you take Kane? Kane in the summer? Yes or no? Get going with that. Talking about the end of January, by the way, I was sorting something out last night. It wasn't to do with the sale. This is going to make it sound like I'm buying Man United. It's not, because obviously I was speaking to somebody last night, but I was doing something else after that. And we've got something really exciting coming at the end of January, which I can't wait. I'm really excited about it. So hopefully you'll find it all very exciting as well. It's a United Stand community thing. You know, it's for us. It's not like external or anything like that. Anyway, so that's what I want to say about Harry Kane. There are a few updates I want to go through as well. Obviously, you might have seen it this morning. I wanted to bury it deeper into the show, but you know, it is sort of the news this morning. Butland, Palace, reserve goalkeeper, apparently going to do a medical today and sign for Manchester United. I didn't really mention Dubravka when we bought him, so I got him on loan. So I'm not going to do standalone videos about the brilliance of signing Butland. There's nothing wrong with Butland. There's nothing wrong with Tom Heaton. There was nothing wrong with Grant, and there's nothing wrong with Dubravka. But these are backup goalkeepers. Then it's not exciting. It's a necessity. All the best, welcome, but it's not exciting, and I'm not going to pretend it is. What would be exciting is sorting out the striker position and the right back's position. And I think that's what we all want to look at. Can ex-players support the buy to be appointed CEO, says Fabio? I suppose they could do, yes. So Butland is going to be coming in. Somebody in the chat there just said Butland is good, says RJ. Well, he doesn't start for Crystal Palace, so he ain't that good, is he? He's a backup goalkeeper, mate. That's what he is. I'm not saying he's bad, and I'm not saying it's a bad signing, but he's a backup goalkeeper. I mean, I don't get excited about that. Do you get excited when you're making a lasagna at night and you know if you burn it, you're having beans on toast? It's just not exciting. It's not. I'm having lasagna. I'm not going to burn it. And David De Gea is our starting goalkeeper unless he gets injured. It's the same thing. I'm having lasagna for tea tonight. I'm not having beans on toast. It's great to know I've got beans on toast as a backup, but I'm having lasagna. And that's how I feel about Butland. It's a backup. Welcome to the football club. Hope you do well. But it's a short-term thing as well. I don't think he'll end up being the long-term. I think we need better than Butland anyway. You know, I acknowledge that David De Gea is the best option for Man United, and I'm very happy and I want him to sign the new contract. But I also acknowledge that we need a better backup goalkeeper to challenge De Gea over the next 2 or 3 years than someone like Butland. Harry Kane is the new Alan Shearer at Newcastle, says Alfred. Okay, 67% of you wouldn't take Harry Kane in the summer. Interesting. It's a bit like ex-players getting involved in buying the club there. Patrick, thanks for being a member for 12 months. Just on the right-back situation, by the way, we have had an update. Hi, Mark. How about Mane as a striker, says Cutter. And we have had an update from Fabrizio about Aaron Wan-Bissaka. So basically, Manchester United's priority in January around the right-back situation is to renew the contract for Dalot. move Aaron Wan-Bissaka on and bring in a replacement. But there's not been any progression on that so far. Wolves, Crystal Palace and West Ham have expressed an interest in Wan-Bissaka, but it's not gone any further than that at the moment. So it feels like a typical Manchester United transfer window, doesn't it? We know what needs to be done, and we know what needs to be done way before the transfer window opens. Nothing happens before the transfer window opens, and nothing happens afterwards. I mean, it happened in the summer. There were clubs sorting deals out in late May. The transfer window opened on June the 10th. We didn't start doing any business till July. And this happens every time. And it's not a coincidence. It's just pure and utter incompetence in how we do transfers. And this needs to change massively when we get new owners, because you look at the way someone like Chelsea is, or Man City are, or Liverpool are, they're aggressive and they're quick, and we're slow. On the striker position, I'm tired of saying it, Ronaldo left 2 months ago. We're 5 days into the transfer window. We've had 2 months and we still haven't got a bloody clue what we're doing around a replacement. All we're hearing is, we're looking for something cheap. Well, did you not look for something cheap in late November or all of December? Like, did you not have something lined up then? Or did you just wander into the shop going, we want something cheap? I mean, it's ridiculous. And as for the right-back situation, I mean, it's not like Wan-Bissaka wasn't tried to be moved on in the summer. Like, again, there are options there, and it just seems to be... I think United, as a football club, are very much using the sale to go, this is an excuse for me why I've always been crap. And they're using that. But, look, I said it last night, there are options there. There are clubs that want to take Wan-Bissaka on. We surely had a plan to bring a right back in if Wan-Bissaka left. So why we're not progressing with that, I don't know. But I suspect we won't. I suspect we won't progress it at all. Hi Mark, sorry if I'm going over old ground. There was talk of Romero coming back as second choice keeper in previous summer transfer window. Do you know why United did not go for him? Says Mohammed. And Vanny says, my issue with having to wait to the summer for a backup right back is the new owners need to focus on replacing our incompetent board, not issues from the Glazers, says Vanny. Well, yeah, it's a typical United tactic. I put a tweet out yesterday and it did very, very well, but it also attracted a bit of attention. And I basically said that, it's amazing how Mourinho and Solskjaer didn't see the CDM issue, but fans did. And now we've got a CDM and the team is performing fantastically well. This is why, for me, I think the community we've built is so important, because we've been doing it for years and there's a lot of knowledge there. There's a lot of experience because you watch the games, you care and you analyse and you research and you discuss. But there are still football fans out there that think because someone's a Man United manager, they know more than you. It's completely not true. I think we have a manager now like that, and we had it with Sir Alex Ferguson. But some of the Wallies we've employed over the last decade, they've got a bloody clue who they're managing. They've got no idea. And I would argue quite comfortably that some of you have a better idea of what's better for Manchester United than some of the managers we've paid a lot of money to. And it baffles me that over the last 5 years, we never brought a centre defensive midfielder in, and yet we saw game after game over the last 5 years our midfield get dominated. So United have always had this tendency in the last 10 years to kick a problem down the road. And if you don't sort the right back out in January, you're kicking it into the summer. And if you kick it into the summer, you're giving yourself another job in a very busy summer. I want to see in the summer a world-class striker coming in, a top-class centre-back coming in, and a top-class midfielder coming in. That's what I think we need to do in the summer. 3 really significant signings down the spine of the team. If we've got to get a right back as well, you're just giving yourself more work. And we could solve that in January. Mark, there's talk about Fati from Barcelona going on loan. What are your thoughts? Exciting young player. Take Butland over Dubravka. Well, I don't think we'll be getting Fati, Andy, but I think we'd all welcome him. Slow Sports News says, I wouldn't surprise me if they were looking for a straight swap, but it is the right decision for Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Needs more game time and he would get that elsewhere, says Slow Sports News. Akshay, thanks for being a member for 4 months. We should have signed someone already, 5 days in and no progress. I want to bring in new players to build depth and kick on with the rest of the season, says Matty Ross. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, look, it's a lack of planning. There is no excuse. We had the World Cup as well, which was basically like an off-season. But unfortunately, United, I think, are using the excuse that, this sale is being used for a lot of excuses, which I think is completely wrong in my opinion. We need a clean sheet. Maguire and Fred out. It's a shame, but that's more for the summer. That's more for the summer, isn't it? Mainu says, is there any Joao Felix updates? I think with Joao Felix, the update is very much going to go like this. We can't afford him. And there are clubs out there. I mean, look at the Chelsea-Arsenal situation. Arsenal are we should bring this in. It's absolutely imperative that we focus on this. You've got Liverpool, who are not even in the top four. They've just spent basically £40 million on a forward that we wanted. You've got Arsenal, who are trying to, at the start of the season would have been over the moon with top four and are now in a title race. They're looking to spend around 60 million on Mudryk in the January transfer window. You've got Chelsea, who were looking to spend about 90 on Enzo Fernandez. That's not going to happen anymore. I'll talk to you about that in a minute. But they're now trying to hijack the Mudryk deal and are offering 70. I mean, that's three of our rivals straight away who have tens of millions of pounds to spend in the January transfer window. And you've got Man United sat there going, we can't afford 10 million on a loan deal. We can't afford 20 million on this. How do you compete? And it's fortunate that the Glazers are trying to sell, because if they were staying, look at the reality of the situation. You've got Arsenal looking to spend 50, 60 million. You've got Chelsea with 100 million. You've got Liverpool with 40 million. And you've got United saying we've got no money. And it's the most competitive Premier League we've probably ever had. Well, it's not ever, but it's the most competitive Premier League we've had in years. The race for top four is ridiculously competitive. The wider Premier League is competitive. There's loads of games to be played. We're going to be playing 3 games a week for the next 5 months. And there's no money. And so on Joao Felix, the latest is Erik ten Hag would love Joao Felix to come to Manchester United. He tried to get him in August. He'd love to bring him to Manchester United. But unfortunately, he's been forced to watch his number one target, Gakpo, go to our number one rival, Liverpool. Joao Felix is his second target. He can't afford him. So he's now being told to look at Memphis Depay or Choupo-Moting or whoever else. And how, it all comes down to money. With Joao Felix, I think we will lose out on him very, very quickly if a Chelsea or an Arsenal decide to go and get him, which they may well do. If Arsenal don't get Mudryk, they'll probably go for Joao Felix, and they've clearly got the money. And if Chelsea can't persuade Mudryk to come to them instead of Arsenal, they'll probably go for Joao Felix. So I still remain 50-50, but I think that it's very clear that Arsenal and Chelsea are looking forwards, and it's very clear that they've got tens of millions of pounds to spend. So I think that they will be able to negotiate a deal with Atletico Madrid and Joao Felix, which obviously throws us completely out. Thoughts on Openda at Lens in the summer if we're let down this window? Hopefully we can work out the Felix deal, says Christian. And do you think Felix is postponed because of Sancho? They are similar players. And do you have any updates on Osman? Osman would be a summer player, Alvin. I don't think Joao Felix and Jadon Sancho are similar players at all. I think they're very different. I think they're completely different players. Jadon Sancho is a winger who some United fans think can play at a number 10 but doesn't track back and doesn't work hard enough, so he's not a number 10. And Joao Felix is really a false 9 or a number 10 who can play off the wing. They're not similar players. So, and actually, we need another player that can play multiple positions. But no, it's a financial reason. The reason we haven't got Joao Felix and the reason we haven't got Gakpo is financial. They are players that Ten Hag wanted. I like Felix, but why has no one rushed to get him, says Robert McCormack. Price, Robert. Price. No one actually wants to pay the price. And also, Robert, not a lot of clubs need to take that risk on that price as well. It's a perfect storm for United. It's well worth doing on a short-term deal. But, I mean, Man City don't need to do it. Liverpool don't need to do it. So, I don't think there's a massive queue for Joao Felix because it is an expensive risk. But we need to take that risk. And, it's there. One positive that might help us, I think is worth bringing in, is that Enzo Fernandez to Chelsea is not going to happen. This is good news if you want Enzo Fernandez to come to Manchester United. I really did think Chelsea were going to get that deal done. They haven't got that deal done, and it looks like Manchester United will have an opportunity, if they wish, with new owners in the summer to compete for Enzo Fernandez, which would be great. He is currently going to be staying at Benfica. The indication was that Chelsea were going to pay the release clause of £120 million, but apparently they were looking to negotiate that price down to about 80 million. So it's not going to happen, and Chelsea are going to move on to other targets, which, funnily enough, are targets that we would like. Casido being mentioned this morning. So Enzo Fernandez looks like it's going to be a summer transfer. Whether United would get involved in that, absolutely not under the current ownership. But if we have new owners, then we could get involved in that deal. And, you know, for me, that's a positive. But let's not forget, Liverpool would like him. Bellingham is apparently going to go to Real Madrid, which means Liverpool need to buy a midfielder. And United will probably go back for De Jong, let's be honest. We'll, even with new owners, we'll probably spend all summer trying to persuade De Jong, because he clearly is the player that Erik ten Hag wants. On the poll, would Harry Kane be a good signing in the summer? Yes, from 33% of you. No, from 67%. Look, world-class striker, but I personally don't think it's the right choice. We can't keep making the same mistake. Kane is not the right profile and will not be able to play in an Erik ten Hag style, says Raza. Mark, thoughts on Mitrovic as a new striker? I think we can do better than that, Aki. I like Mitrovic, but I think we can do better than that. Harry Kane in a Ten Hag system, I think, would work. I mean, Ten Hag has used Martial, Rashford, Ronaldo this season at United. He's used Haller. He's used a false nine. So I don't think you can pigeonhole a Ten Hag striker and say that they don't work. I think Harry Kane could work quite well in a Ten Hag system, because he likes to drop in. He does run around a lot. He can press from the front. But my biggest issue with Harry Kane is that you're going to play premium prices. I just think it could be another Alexis Sanchez. Very similar age, very similar career. But I think he's going to drop off a cliff at 30. I really think Harry Kane will drop off a cliff at 30. I think he's played too much football. I think he's had a lot of injuries. And I don't think Harry Kane's career trajectory is scoring goals at the highest level at 34. I don't. I think he's got the profile to start to get quite heavily injured and fall off a cliff in his 30s. And I don't mean literally. I don't mean he's going to be hobbling around near a cliff and fall off it. I mean, like, his football career, I think he will drop off. And I would be saying to United, if you're looking at Harry Kane in the summer, you're going to have to give Spurs Spurs will probably want 70 million, even though he's got a year left. 70 million, he'll want big wages, he'll want a long contract, big outlay, big wages, big contract on a player who's 30, who I think will fall off massively over that contract. We did it with Sanchez. No one's going to take him off us. I wouldn't do it. Did someone in the chat say Erik ten Hag wouldn't want Kane? Well, Robert would. Bloody loves him. Kane could be another Van Persie, says Daz. We got 1 year out of Robin Van Persie, Daz. It was a very, very significant year, but we got 1 year. As a Bahrainian, it's nice to be mentioned in the rumours, but I haven't really heard any interest to buy the club from here. Dubai sounds more likely. I agree, Madar. I think it will be, if it's going to be anywhere, it will be. I think it will be coming from Dubai. I think you're right about that. What's your general hunch on who we will get in the January transfer window as a forward, Mark? Well, I'm only 50-50 on Joao Felix, and I've just got a feeling that somebody else will get him. And once he's off the table, it's like Gakpo, he's off the table. We will bring somebody in. I've always said my fear is Memphis, and I like Memphis. I don't want anybody to think I don't like Memphis, but I don't think it's the right choice. I don't think it's the right profile of player. And I don't really want to see Memphis Depay as a Manchester United player for the next 3 years. I wouldn't mind it for the next 5 months, but I don't want a cheap long-term option. If we're going to go for a cheap option, let's make sure they leave at the end of May and we bring in a long-term major investment. And the thing is as well, it's not real. I mean, look, you can't argue that Thuram or Memphis or Choupo-Moting wouldn't love to come to Man United in January, but you can see what would happen. They'd get a bit of game time between now and the end of the season, but they might not start because, let's be honest, Anthony, Rashford and Martial would still be the front three. So they'll be on the bench a lot. And then once the summer hits, new owners, you do buy your Harry Kane or your Osimhen, they'll drift even further down. So you can see it going the way of Ighalo very quickly, but on a longer contract. Like, they don't play much, and then we buy players in the summer and they drop further down the list. This is why I wanted to bring somebody in where there's potential for it to be long term. Gakpo would have been good. Joao Felix would be my next option. But I agree with Zion. I think Memphis Depay is decent, but all I would say about that is, where's the queue to buy him? He's literally been available to buy for a year, and nobody has gone near him. And not even big clubs, you know, not even the Aston Villas have gone near him, or the Evertons. Like, nobody's going near him, or the Newcastles. Nobody's gone near him, and I think that's a massive concern. Why? And he's not worked out at Barcelona. He wasn't particularly good in the World Cup, and he had a good career in the French league, and he had a good career in the Eredivisie, but there's a ceiling there, and that for me is why I want something long term. I don't want some risky short term thing that's never going to work out. But that's where Man United are shopping, because they don't have any bloody money. And to be fair to Ten Hag, he's got to do something, hasn't he? He has to do something. He can't just sit there and say, I don't want something, because he has to get something in. He has to, because it's about numbers. Sean says Depay's injury prone as well. I don't know about that, but again, that's something worth looking at. In fact, let's just quickly do that. Of course, as well, don't forget, I'm very excited today because even Ricky messaged me about this morning. He said, is there a press conference today, Mark? And I said, there is. So we've got the very first Ten Hag press conference in weeks. They've all been pre-recorded for a while, so the very first one in weeks, and we should get some good updates around quite a few things. I don't think he would talk about the sale, but I certainly think he'll talk about transfers, and the thing I'm most interested in is the update on Jadon Sancho. I'm expecting to get a good update on that. So Memphis injury, oh God, he's had a few. So he had a hamstring injury a year ago, which kept him out for a month. He then had an Achilles problem that kept him out for a month. Then in April, he was out for 10 days with a muscle strain. And then in September, he was out for another month with a thigh problem. So he's had 4 quite significant injuries in a year. Hamstring, Achilles, thigh, 2 thigh problems. Previous to that, he hadn't really had anything major since his cruciate ligament, which kept him out for about 6 months in 2020. But yeah, I mean, there is a concern there, to be fair. 4 muscle injuries in the last 12 months could be an issue. But look, that might be another, you know, what I do know about recruitment, and Liverpool I know for a fact on this, when Liverpool buy a player, they want a player that can play 90% of their games every season. They would not go near Memphis, even if he was good, because the injury thing would be a problem. They didn't buy Fekir a few years ago because the operation he'd had on his knee was the different type of operation to what normally happens, and they couldn't predict what his recuperation would be long term with the knee injury. Now, I think Fekir has actually ended up playing quite a lot of football, but Liverpool pulled out. And you look at Liverpool and their recruitment. Mo Salah plays a ridiculous amounts of games. Mane played a ridiculous amount of games. Wijnaldum did as well. They do their research. It's massively part of many clubs' recruitment that they look at an injury problem for a player and try and predict how much game time they'll get from them. I mean, something like what happened with... we'll get an update on Donny today, of course, as well. But something like Donny, you can't account for that. That's just bad luck. But... you know, there is a lot of things that happens with recruitment. Apparently Daley Blind's going to go to Bayern Munich as a free agent. Interesting. Somebody said McTominay's back. He was on the bench on Tuesday. He's been back for a few days. So, yeah. Lovely stuff. I'm just seeing if there's any updates. Anything new whilst we're live on air. Got a super chat, that's new. Yozza says, we need 2 strikers, Makuku in January, Osimhen or Sesko in the summer. Loans just moved the problem down the road. Yeah, well, we spoke about that, Yozza, with the right-back situation, didn't we? If we don't solve the right-back situation in January, we're just stacking up problems for the summer. I would look at these things as well. If I was the new owner, I'd sack the director of football and the CEO anyway, because I think we need a fresh start. But even if I wasn't going to sack them, I'd say, why didn't you do anything in January? And don't tell me it's because you knew the club was up for sale. Like, you shouldn't be stacking up these problems. You know, you've got a list of things to do. Get on with them, and save yourself some time. That's surely the logical way to look at things, but it doesn't always be how United look at it. Man United are exploring the chances of signing Ajax forward Kudos if a loan plus buy deal could happen. Yeah, but it's from Graham Bailey. I'm sorry. I don't know why. Look, all due respect, I know who that person is. They get mentioned all the time, and I've never seen them have an exclusive. So for me, that's not... Everyone's got the right. You know, a lot of people say I'm a knobhead. I deal with it. But it's... that the source is rubbish. And always has been rubbish. And I hate saying that because everyone's got the right to say stuff, but I've never known that source be any good. So, you know, I just think it's a load of shit, and I'm not going to really discuss it, although I just have. But I think you have to be honest, don't you? You know, we spend a lot of time talking about transfers, and I could pluck some right shit out there. You know, there's probably somebody out there saying that we're going to buy Osimhen tomorrow. So, no, it's not going to happen. Like, it's not going to happen. Kudos is not happening. And you know what? Actually, those sort of stories irritate me because it just gets people excited for no reason. We are not getting Kudos on a loan to buy deal from Ajax. Ajax would rather shit on their own head than do us a favour. Like, we pissed them off massively last summer. They're not going to do a deal like that. And all it does is make people get excited over absolutely nothing. Not going to happen. Sesko, it's gone very quiet on Sesko. I mean, obviously Sesko is going from Salzburg to Leipzig. There was a little bit of a talk that Leipzig might cash in before he even plays a game, but that's gone very quiet as well. And of course, the reason it's gone quiet on Sesko is to get Sesko, you'd have to have money to get Sesko, and we have got no money, so that's why it's quiet on Sesko. We can't get anybody that costs more than 15 million quid. It's as simple as that. I think United might not even have 15 million quid. But last night's show is very, very, very good to watch because I mentioned that on there. United could generate 50 million this January like that. They don't want to, but they could. There's a couple of players you could raise 50 million quid for. Look, no one's going to give you money for Brandon Williams. No one's going to give you money for Phil Jones. No one's going to give you money for Twan Sebi. But there's a couple of players that we could shift on and bring some money in. But we're not going to do that. So we're not in the market for anybody who's going to cost any money. And the biggest, if you're reading these stories and thinking we've got a chance, just keep this in your mind. Liverpool bought Gakpo for £37 million. This was Ten Hag's number one target, and United couldn't raise £37 million. So we've got no money. We haven't got a lot of money. Would we get Tesco club points on him, says Ashley Smith. And the fact that somebody thinks that a top club is going to loan us a top player, not going to happen. Atletico Madrid will loan us Joao Felix because they're trying to sell him. A club who doesn't want to sell a player is not going to loan us a player. Getting someone like Kudos would be like getting someone like, I don't know, James Ward-Prowse, who people probably don't want. But no, a more, it'd be like going to, I'm trying to think of a really good player. Mitrovic, Fulham, give us Mitrovic on loan. Fuck off. You know, simple as that. Anyway, look, thanks everyone for watching. Take care. So it's an interesting day today because I've got the preview later. We've got a show at 2 o'clock, but we're also live just after 4:30. Eric Ten Hag's press conference is at 4:30 today, so I'm going to be live at about 4:45. So if you're back from school, work, whatever, remember we'll be live at 4:45 tonight, straight after Eric Ten Hag's press conference, which is at 4:30. Very interested by that. The poll, Kane in the summer, 66% of you said no. Make sure you smash a like and subscribe. We're back at 2, but don't forget we've got Ten Hag's press conference reaction, 4:45 today. And we'll have a preview going up. And I'm doing Chelsea versus Man City tonight on That's Football at 8 o'clock. So lots to get involved in. I think I'm doing FIFA at 3 as well if you're interested in that. So a busy day, and United play tomorrow. Take care, everyone. Speak to you in a bit.